There are seasons in life when the silence feels heavier than the storm, not because nothing is happening, but because you cannot see what is happening. And that can be one of the hardest battles of faith. To keep believing when there is no visible answer. To keep praying when the heavens seem quiet. To keep trusting when everything around you looks delayed. Maybe you know that feeling. You prayed, you waited, you hoped, you held on, and still, the breakthrough did not come when you expected. The door did not open. The burden did not lift. The answer did not arrive. And if you are honest, part of you started wondering, God, are you hearing me? And maybe you felt guilty even asking. But listen carefully. Questions do not cancel faith. Sometimes they deepen it. Because real faith is not pretending you never struggle. Real faith keeps reaching, even while wrestling. And maybe nobody sees the private battle you fight. The battle of continuing to trust while feeling forgotten. The battle of praising while carrying pain. The battle of smiling while silently asking heaven, when? Why? How much longer? And if that is where you are, I need you to hear this. Silence is not absence. Delay is not denial. And hidden does not mean abandoned. Because some of the greatest things God does begin underground. Seeds grow in dark places. Roots deepen where nobody sees. And what feels buried may actually be planted. Think about that. Maybe you feel buried, pressed, forgotten, but perhaps you are being planted, prepared, strengthened beneath the surface. Because God often works in places human eyes cannot measure. And we panic in the waiting because we confuse quiet with inactivity. But heaven can be silent and still be moving, powerfully, precisely, lovingly. And what if what feels like delay is actually development? What if the prayer you think is unanswered is being shaped into something bigger than what you asked for? Because sometimes God does not respond quickly, because He is doing deeply, and depth takes time, character takes time, preparation takes time. And maybe what you call a slow season is a sacred season, a season teaching endurance, a season building trust, a season shaping the version of you that can carry what you have prayed for. Because blessings without preparation can crush people. So maybe you are not being overlooked. Maybe you are being readied. And maybe this silent season is not punishment. It is positioning for something greater. And one day, you may look back at this painful quiet and realize God was doing His deepest work when you heard the least. Waiting has broken many people because they misunderstood it. They saw waiting as wasted time, as stagnation, as failure. But waiting in the hands of God is not empty. It is active. It is forming. It is refining. It is teaching your soul how to stand before the promise arrives. Because what if waiting is not where your life is paused, but where your spirit is built? Think of how much inside you has been shaped through things you never would have chosen. Patience, humility, depth, dependence, strength, all born through seasons you wanted to escape. And maybe that is where you are now, trying to escape a season that is actually shaping you. Because we love miracles, but we resist preparation. We pray for mountains, but hate climbing. Pray for strength, but resist pressure. Pray for purpose, but resist process. Yet purpose is born through process. Always. And if the promise came too soon, you might not be ready to carry it. So maybe God's wait is mercy. Maybe His slowness is protection. Maybe His timing is kinder than your urgency. And hear me, while you wait, do not let your mind lie to you. Do not let delay convince you nothing is coming. Do not let silence convince you you were forgotten. Do not let unanswered prayers make you abandon trust. Because things can be moving before they appear. Doors can be opening before you see hinges turn. Miracles can be forming while your life still looks ordinary. And maybe right now, what feels ordinary is sacred preparation. Maybe your routine is holy ground. Maybe your hidden faithfulness is being noticed. Because heaven sees hidden obedience. And hidden obedience often births public breakthrough. So don't despise small days. Don't despise waiting days. Don't despise unseen days. They may be carrying the greatest becoming of your life. And one day, what felt like delay may reveal itself as perfect timing. There is something beautiful about the way God chooses impossible places, deserts, prisons, storms, wilderness, places humans call endings. He often calls beginnings. And maybe you're in a wilderness now, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, a place that feels dry, confusing, lonely, and you wonder how anything good can come from here. But what if this wilderness is where you meet strength you would have never discovered elsewhere? Because some revelations only happen in empty places. Some dependence only grows when support is stripped away. Some intimacy with God is born when every other security fails. And yes, that can feel terrifying, but it can also be sacred, because impossible places have a strange way of revealing impossible grace. Maybe you have looked at your life and quietly thought, this is too broken, too delayed, too messy, too damaged. But hear me, God does not fear broken things. He restores them. He does not avoid impossible situations. He transforms them. He specializes where human logic stops. And perhaps your greatest mistake has been measuring your future by your present pain. Pain is a chapter, not prophecy. And what you see right now is not the whole story, because resurrection often begins where everything looked dead. Read that again in your spirit. Resurrection begins where things looked finished. And maybe what looks impossible in your life is exactly where God intends to reveal what only He can do. So don't call hopeless what heaven still calls alive. Don't bury expectation because the road looks hard. Don't decide the story is over because you cannot see the next page. Because God writes beyond sight, beyond timing, beyond logic. And maybe your miracle is growing in the place you almost gave up on. Hold on. Stay open. Keep believing. Because impossible places have birthed impossible testimonies before, and yours may be next. Sometimes, what you call breaking is actually becoming. But pain rarely announces itself that way. When something falls apart, it feels like loss. It feels like failure. It feels like everything stable is slipping through your hands. And in those moments, the human instinct is to panic, to grab tighter, to force control, to mourn what is changing. But what if some things are not collapsing? They are shedding? What if the life you thought was falling apart is actually being rearranged? Because pruning looks violent before it produces fruit. Construction looks messy before it becomes a home. And transformation often feels like destruction before it reveals itself as beauty. Maybe you have been grieving what God is actually rebuilding. Maybe you have been resisting what is meant to free you. Because we often beg God to keep alive what He is trying to replace. And that is painful, because endings hurt. Even necessary endings. Even holy endings. Even divinely timed endings. But some doors close because you have outgrown the room. Some relationships fade because they were seasonal. Some dreams break because bigger ones are forming. And yes, that takes faith to accept, because growth often asks you to release what once felt sacred and trust what you cannot yet hold. That is not easy. But hear me, God wastes nothing. Not your tears, not your disappointments, not even your detours. He uses all of it. All of it. The betrayal, the waiting, the heartbreak, the confusion, the years that felt stolen. He weaves what hurt you into what shapes you. And maybe right now, your life feels fragmented, like pieces, like ruins, like unfinished chapters. But broken pieces, in the hands of God, become mosaics. Beauty from fracture, purpose from pain, light through cracks. And one day, what you call broken may be the very thing you thank God for reshaping. Because what feels shattered may not be your ruin. It may be your rebirth. There is a strength God builds in hidden seasons that applause can never produce. Quiet strength, deep strength, the kind that does not perform. It endures. And maybe that is what is happening in you. Maybe while you thought you were barely surviving, your soul was learning to stand. Because endurance is not glamorous. It is forged in ordinary faithfulness, in choosing hope again, in praying again, in rising again, even after disappointment, especially after disappointment. And that matters, because anyone can believe when life feels easy, but to keep trusting through unanswered prayers that shapes something eternal in you. And maybe you underestimate what these hard seasons have built. You think only visible wins count, but hidden victories matter too. The day you didn't quit. Victory. The morning you prayed through tears. Victory. The time you kept kindness. After being wounded. Victory. The moment you kept believing. When fear screamed louder. Victory. These are not small things. These are sacred things. These are soul muscles. And they are growing. Because your spirit is learning how not to collapse when circumstances shake. It is learning rootedness. And rooted people survive storms. Maybe that's why the pressure has been intense. Roots grow under pressure. And deep roots carry tall futures. Do you hear me? Tall futures require deep roots. And perhaps God has been deepening you for what you prayed to carry. Not punishing, preparing, not withholding, strengthening, not ignoring, building. And when the winds come, because life always has winds, you will not break like you once would have. Because this season quietly taught your soul how to stand. And one day, you'll realize you were becoming unshakable while you thought you were only enduring. There is a reason night feels longest right before dawn, because transition often hides itself inside darkness. And maybe that is where you are, a place where it still looks dark, still feels uncertain, still sounds quiet, but dawn may be nearer than you know. And I need you to hear this. Do not interpret darkness as the absence of morning. It may be the announcement of it, because change often whispers before it roars. Hope often returns softly before it floods, and breakthroughs often begin as invisible shifts before visible miracles. Maybe today, all you see is night, but heaven may already see sunrise. And maybe what feels late is right on time. Maybe what feels impossible is one step from movement. Maybe what feels silent is carrying an answer already on the way. And I know, when you're tired, that sounds hard to hold. But hold it anyway. Hold hope before you feel it. Hold faith before you see it. Hold expectation before evidence arrives. Because that is how many miracles are met, with believing first. And one day soon, you may wake up inside the very answered prayer you almost stopped expecting. Imagine that. The thing you nearly gave up on, becoming reality. The healing, the peace, the restoration, the open door, the joy, the new beginning. And suddenly, all this waiting, all this wrestling, all this silent trusting will make sense, because morning will come. It always does. And when it does, you will understand. God was never absent in the silence. He was preparing dawn. So breathe, stay, pray, trust, hold on a little longer, because the morning may be closer than you think. And your story is not ending in night. It is moving toward light.